But oh, look at how great Chris Biderman looks here. Oh,
Ooh.
that boy Chris Biderman looks nice in his reasonable doubt corners
Ooh.
of the culture hoodie.
Take you back to reasonable doubt time. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, this I mean, I love this sweater, but I'm such a sloppy eater that like I just cannot have food anywhere near this thing. So I figured I'd, come on and represent with you guys on the show because I definitely
That's
won't be eating.
that's love, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
It looks fantastic. We appreciate it. Do you can you add anything about Eric Armstead? We were just talking about him reading off his list of injuries on the right side of his body, the left side of his body, and it just doesn't sound good.
No, the words hairline fracture for a big guy in particular is always scary. I don't really have anything to add to it other than what's already been reported, but doesn't sound good. And
He's
I,
conceivably out for the season, right?
it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that wouldn't surprise me. That's not an injury that I mean, he's got both. He's got like ankle and foot things going on. It's just
Oh,
doesn't sound like he's coming back anytime soon. So that's a
yeah.
big loss for them. I think he's one of their most underrated players.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. You don't want to take any chances with some of the things we're hearing with rushing him back or even bringing him back at all. But I do want to say this because I do agree that he's a big loss. Have the 49ers found a way in his absence? Because he's been gone since week, I think he got hurt week 3, maybe week 2. I can't remember. Have they found a way to, I don't want to say move on, but like kind of, all right, we know what we're doing with this defensive line and we know how to make it work, or are they still feeling the remnants of him not being there?
Yeah, I think he's because they don't have DeForest Buckner and because Javon Kinlaw hasn't been what they hoped he would be yet. I don't think they really have a good answer there. Like Akeem Spence, Hassan Ridgeway, Kevin Givens, those are all kind of like rotational dudes. And if you're asking them to be starters, then I think teams are just going to attack those guys. And that, the 49ers run defense, while Armstead was healthy, was one of the best in the league. And I think Kinlaw could be a potential solution, but we don't know when or if he's ever going to be healthy either. So I would say defensively, the interior of their defensive line feels like the Achilles heel right now. Because Armstead is so good at defending the run and he's an underrated pass rusher. I think that's a really tough spot for them, a lot of production for them to try to replace. And I don't know that they can do it right now. So that's one area of concern because, like, when the defense was struggling against Kansas City and in the first half of the Rams game, they were allowing a lot of third down conversions, and a lot of that had to do with like third and short, and because they were just teams were actually able to run the ball against them in early downs, and I think that's going to be key for them. Defensive coaches talk about it all the time. Like the first thing we got to do is stop the run. And I know analytics and everything, they're like, oh, the running game doesn't matter. Well, that's literally D'Amico Ryan says the first thing we have to do as a defense is stop the run. And I think there's credence to that because if you can't stop the run, then an offense in the NFL today is going to be able to do basically whatever it wants. And so you have to stop the run. Therefore, you can make an offense more one-dimensional and easier to defend. But if the 49ers aren't going to have Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw for a long time, which that's kind of feels like where it's heading, right? Like it's going to be more difficult on the defense. But they do have a really good linebacking core. They do have a good secondary if everybody's healthy. So the defense should be fine. But I do think I don't think they have the bodies to replace Armstead right now, particularly with Kinlaw out.
Chris Biderman, Sacramento Bee, host of Candlestick Chronicles, with us here on D'Lo and Casey. How close is Drake Jackson to kind of cementing himself as a major part of that defense?
I'm very curious to see because you see signs of it, right? Like a lot of times for rookies, they come into the league, they sort of try to figure out how to play, try to establish a role, and then as their rookie season goes on and like the back stretch of it, they really take a leap. And I think Drake Jackson is certainly a candidate because he's just an obscene athlete, right? Like, and if he had the type of college career where he produced right away, where it was very evident what type of player he would be, like you see with so many other prospects. You remember, like, he was fluctuating weight, he was changing positions, he had different defensive coordinators, and he never really strung together the type of college career that a first round prospect typically has. But given that, he plays a premium position, he's super athletic, he has a size and all of that to sort of typify like the modern day defensive end. I do think he could wind up being a steal for them in the second round. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he really comes on in the second half, because teams are, I think the 49ers offense is going to score more, which means opposing offenses are going to pass the ball more. Samson Ebukam's banged up. He's been dealing with an Achilles issue and now a quad injury. Go figure, the 49ers have an injury during a practice, which seems to happen way too often. But there are going to be opportunities for Drake Jackson, particularly if Samson Ebukam has to miss any time. I did like that pick a lot, and I think the more I've watched him play, even at training camp, it was apparent, like, this guy's a freak. Like, how many 260-pound dudes do you see doing like handsprings and rolls or whatever they're called? Like that guy. Like, he's just got a special level of athleticism to him. And I think as he gets more comfortable, particularly down the stretch here with more opportunities, I think he could be a really good pass rusher for them.
I thought I saw somewhere earlier this week where Al-Shaair is he on his way back this week, or is he looking like he's maybe a week or two, like he's around the corner from coming back?
He returned to practice, so it could be this week, it could be next week, but returning to practice is obviously a good sign.
How big is that for this defense to get it? Because he was playing at a super high level, I'd say, in the last, dating back to last year, probably the last, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 games. Like, he was playing really, really well. And they lost him week 1, right?
Yeah, so he's been a really good player for them when he's on the field. I think the bigger thing for them, because like Dre Greenlaw's in and out of the lineup with injuries, like having all three of those guys healthy at once is helpful, because if you do deal with an injury for Greenlaw, then Al-Shaair can step in. And if you do deal with the Al-Shaair injury, Greenlaw can be there, right? Because most of the time, like probably 2/3 of the time, they're playing with just two linebackers on the field. So, there's one of the issues they had in the Chiefs game was, Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles was just really getting picked on. Like, his play was an issue and a big reason why the Chiefs were able to do everything they did in that game. And then you notice Oren Burks was playing that position in the Rams game. Al-Shaair just gives you depth and more credibility at that spot. The three linebacker sets are obviously going to look good when they are in those positions or in those personnel groupings. But when you have just another starting caliber guy, just like for this team, depth is really important because guys are always in and out of the lineup with injuries. If you just have another guy healthy, that helps you, right? So if Dre Greenlaw has another nagging injury, then you can play Al-Shaair, and there isn't nearly the drop off as there would be than if you had to go to, Flannigan-Fowles or Oren Burks, and I should say Burks played pretty well in the Rams game, but they definitely feel better with Al-Shaair healthy.
How close to what we saw against the Rams with Christian McCaffrey in that 49ers offense? How much do you think that is? That's what the 49ers have. Like, that's it, that game against the Rams, or is it a little less than that?
So seeing it, and like, it's been hard for me not to try to overreact to that Rams game because it was such a good game for the offense and Christian McCaffrey. And like, thinking about it since then, it's like, all right, when Jimmy Garoppolo throws interceptions, most often, like, what does it look like? It's like, all right, his first two or three reads are taken away. The thoughts he had pre-snap, obviously, like they took away whatever options he thought he was going to have pre-snap. He had to make a second reaction play, and then he's forcing a ball into triple coverage, right? Like, Jimmy Garoppolo just doesn't throw the ball away, and a lot of his worst throws are when he's forcing it to somebody like Deebo Samuel. The one that sticks out to me always is like the Broncos game, like week 3 or whenever that was, when Deebo was triple covered. The fact that he has a check down option who might be arguably the best check down option in the NFL, I think is a complete game changer for Jimmy Garoppolo in particular, because instead of, having to make a second reaction play and potentially trying to force it to George Kittle or Deebo Samuel, guys who are heavily covered, now you have a check down option where you feel like, all right, we can get 6, 7, 8 yards a pop with this guy. And even like when he was the check down option, but then saw open space in the end zone and had that really good touchdown catch in the second half of the Rams game, then you're like, okay, this is this is a completely different dynamic for the 49ers passing game, because now you can still get positive yardage. You can still have, productive, successful plays when those initial reads aren't there. And so that, to me, I think is really what might be the big game changer for the 49ers offense in getting this trade, is like, now you have a check down option, and maybe you take some of these bad throws that Jimmy Garoppolo typically makes off the table, and then you turn these into potentially chain moving plays or even touchdowns, right? And it's not a surprise that Jimmy Garoppolo in that game set a career high for completion rate with 84% of his passes completed, right? So to me, that's the biggest thing. Like, trading a lot of picks for a running back, I generally isn't something you would do or think is a smart decision. But when that running back is somebody who you can throw the ball to 8 times a game, I think that's a potential game changer for the 49ers. And the 49ers didn't even have Deebo Samuel in that Rams game. And you just think about all the ways that Kyle Shanahan could potentially create space for those guys, using Deebo Samuel as a decoy or using Christian McCaffrey as a decoy, on top of what you could always get from George Kittle when he's healthy in the passing game. Like, I think the offense could be really scary, for opposing defenses. And look, the NFC is wide open. So if they keep all these guys healthy, and that's always the key with this team, they got to keep these guys healthy. But if they can, I think it's fair to say the 49ers, like, I felt really good about the 49ers group of skill guys coming into the season. And now with Christian McCaffrey, based on that Rams game, it's like, man, this guy's really the limit for these guys as long as they're all available and playing.
And talking about Debo coming back and Jawan Jennings coming back, looks like even Elijah Mitchell is going to be coming back as well. Is there a scenario that you see where, I know Christian McCaffrey is a running back, but they even look at him as maybe, getting Elijah Mitchell in the backfield and having McCaffrey as like your slot guy or something like that,
Yeah.
or Debo on the outside? I mean, there seems like there's so many things that they can do with a guy like McCaffrey because of his skill set. Do you see him being a flat out receiver sometimes?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I thought Jimmy Garoppolo, I thought Jimmy Garoppolo's best football he played for the 49ers was 2017, after he took over the starting job, those final 5 games after the trade from the Patriots. And if you remember those games, like, one of the big reasons Jimmy Garoppolo was so successful was because of Trent Taylor, the slot receiver that they had, who was one of the best third down targets, particularly on slants, in the NFL. I know exactly why you're laughing.
We thought he was going to be the next Wes Walker.
And Wes Welker was his receivers coach.
Exactly, yeah.
But Christian McCaffrey is like, a lot of people thought he was a slot receiver coming out when he in the 2017 draft. And the numbers that he put up in Carolina those couple seasons, like, he was legitimately one of the best pass catchers in the league, regardless of position, right? Really good route runner, really good athlete. Like, I think sort of the positionless football thing that Kyle Shanahan loves to incorporate into his offense, that really plays with McCaffrey and what you can do with him out of the slot. Because, you could have a very traditional personnel grouping with 2 receivers, a tight end, and a fullback, and really align any guy anywhere. You could align Kyle Juszczyk in the slot. You could align Christian McCaffrey in the slot. You could put George Kittle in the slot or out wide. Like, you can do all sorts of different things. And I think that's a big part of it too. So yeah, like, I see Christian McCaffrey being in the slot a lot as the season goes along, because I think Kyle Shanahan realizes one of the things that the 49ers have lacked in recent seasons has been sort of that slot receiver chain mover on third down that Jimmy Garoppolo had when Trent Taylor was playing well in 2017.
I'm getting hyped. Right now I'm getting hyped, and I'm just trying to calm down, because every time I get too hyped with the 49ers, Damien, somebody goes down or something. I'm just gonna calm down. I'm just gonna calm down.
I'm with you guys. I mean, I think I came on this show before the season started and said that they were going to, I think the 49ers can go to the Super Bowl. And based on how the season has played out in the NFC, I know the Eagles are really good, but really after that, like, it doesn't feel like there's any team, even the Eagles, like, it doesn't feel like there's any team in the NFC that the 49ers can't beat, but they do have to be at full strength. Like, that's always going to be the most important thing for them. And like, as good as the roster is, it just feels like the training staff is like the Detroit Lions of training staffs. And it's hard to, like it happened again this week. Like they have these practices off bye weeks, these bonus practices, and guys get hurt in controlled environments. And it just doesn't make any sense why it keeps happening. But I mean, I'm talking about Samson Ebukam and the thigh injury. It's not a huge deal, I don't think, because, Ebukam could potentially be replaced by somebody like Drake Jackson. But yeah, if they're healthy, I would feel good about putting them against any team in the NFC in the playoffs.
Y'all just be crapping all over the Seattle Seahawks, man.
I mean, what you talking about? I said they're a good team.
Yeah, you begrudgingly
I said they're having a good season.
Chris Biderman, for the record, are the Seattle Seahawks a good football team?
Yeah, they're a good football team. I don't know.
Chris Biderman, for the record, are the Seattle Seahawks a better football team than the San Francisco 49ers?
Settle down.
You remember what happened week 2?
Objection.
I mean, look, the Seahawks are on a nice run here. The Niners still put it to them in week 2, right? In a game where Trey Lance got hurt, Jimmy Garoppolo came in without practicing at all and played pretty well. Now, obviously, the teams have gone through a lot since then, and the records speak for themselves. But, I do think that December Thursday night game when the 49ers go up to play Seattle could potentially be for the division. But I think, Vegas is on the money when they make the 49ers the current betting favorites to win the NFC West over the Seahawks. I just don't know if Seattle's defense is going to be good enough. And I know Pete Carroll's a really good defensive coach, and they have some pretty intriguing defensive players, young and up and coming defensive guys. But it's just hard for me to look at, the talent the 49ers have offensively, the pedigree they have with their couple playoff runs in the last 3 years. Like, I have a hard time believing that team is really going to be the reason why the 49ers don't win the division. That being said, the NFL is super weird at all times, and it's impossible to say because some teams that we think are going to be good, like the Packers and the Bucks and the Rams, are just bad and stink. And then other teams like the Seahawks, who we thought coming into the season might be tanking, are like real playoff potential teams. So it's weird, but as of right now, I would still say the 49ers are better than the Seahawks, but anything can happen in the NFL, as we've seen.
I thought we were done with these guys. I really did. I thought we were done with the Seahawks, and here they are. But okay, they want to do it, then let's do it. All right, I'll be ready. I'll be ready in late December when we go to Seattle on a Thursday night.
We had Deebo Samuel on our podcast this week, and I asked him about the Rams and what is it about the Rams? Why do you guys just dominate them? What's up with the 8-0 record? And he's like, we're not even rivals with them. Like we're bigger rivals with the Seahawks. Which I thought was fascinating.
It's such a sign of disrespect, too. It's such a slap in the face to the Rams.
It definitely felt that way because, there was a whole Aaron Donald thing, didn't know who Deebo Samuel was a couple years ago and all that. It's not even acknowledging that it's a rival is a pretty substantial slap in the face.
And one more slap in the face is needed, potentially, as we have the Hallmark channel on.
I swear to God. There's too many damn people in this building. Since you brought it up, Jesse, could you tell Jonathan that he turned our television on and the volume is up? Could you tell whoever is playing with the remote to please stop? Goodness gracious.
So one more.
He's in God knows what room controlling the television.
One more slap in the face that I think we need for the Rams is if we go get Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, how realistic is that, Chris? Is that something that we talked about all the offensive weapons that the 49ers have right now? Do they have too many offensive weapons to go get Odell Beckham? I say no. I say you're one injury away from needing a guy like that. They had Snead on there last week. You know what I mean? So I say if you can go get him, you go get him. But does he fit? How realistic is it? What's your thought about
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah. Odell. All right. So I think it could work, but I think expecting OBJ to come in and be even the player he was last year might be asking for a little bit too much, because keep in mind, this is a guy who tore the same ACL now twice. And can he be a complimentary receiver? Do you like him in the Juwan Jennings role? I think that certainly makes sense. But if you're Odell, if you're Odell and you just want to win, then yeah, joining the 49ers would make sense because, like you said, the Willie Snead, Danny Gray type role could potentially be open there for him. But if you're Odell and you want 8 targets a game, I don't know that you're going to get that from the 49ers. And then it's also tough to say, like, where's that opportunity going to be where he could join a contending team and also get the targets that he wants, right? So I do think it's possible because the 49ers, like you said, are always an injury away from needing somebody else. But in terms of, like, you have an all-pro last year at Deebo Samuel. You have an all-pro tight end in George Kittle, who doesn't care if he gets targets or not, but still somebody who can get a good amount of targets. You have Brandon Ayuk, who's been really good to great at certain points of this season, and I think he's been better than what his production would indicate. At least that's the way Kyle Shanahan's talking about him, and we know Kyle Shanahan doesn't heap praise on receivers in particular when he doesn't think they deserve it. But if Odell wants to come to the 49ers, they would certainly entertain it. But I just wonder if that's going to be the best opportunity for him to get real playing time, because we know he's going to try to, get a contract. Maybe it'll be a 1-year contract, I would assume, and then he'd hit free agency next year. And I'm guessing he would want the best opportunity to just get a lot of catches. And I don't know that the 49ers are going to offer him that. But I also didn't think the 49ers were going to go get Christian McCaffrey. So maybe there's more to it than I'm thinking at the moment.
Chris Biderman, Candlestick Chronicles, Sacramento Bee, tremendous 49ers coverage, tremendous Kings coverage as well. Chris, we appreciate you as always, my man. Thank you.
No problem. You guys going to the Kings game tonight?
I'll be there as a fan, though. I'm
Okay.
not with the media, but I'll be there Sunday with the media. So,
Are you guys going somewhere after this? You guys are dressed like very nicely.
Yeah, this is just how we show up to
This
the
is how you do it.
Don't
Okay.
let everybody
Cool.
surprised. This is
Oh, I'm not surprised. You guys always dress well. It's just like, is it hoodies and like sweats dressing well, or is it like, button ups and
the office might be a little more crowded than it normally is, which may be
Gotcha.
contributing to our attire today.
I got you. You guys look great as always. Good to see you.
We appreciate you. No, you look great. You can get that Corner of the Culture hoodie at DeLoandCasey.com. Thanks, Chris.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.